Mets are back.
Woo!
The Mets are back.
Woo!
The Mets are back. We're so back in. This episode, I texted James when it was going on. He was like, "What time are we going to record?" Usually, when we start talking about when we're recording before the game even ends, that's never a good thing. We're never like, "Can't wait to record." So excited because good things are happening. It's usually like, "What time will the misery end?" And I can get this out of my mind. But they brought us back in. JD Martinez walk-off home run, the first of his career. Mets take the Mets take the series off of the Miami Marlins, who are just so absolutely terrible. The vibes completely changed, and you know what? I'm going to embrace the positivity in this episode. I'm going to be a happy Mets fan for once. Take the series, playing a little bit better baseball. Maybe I'll convince myself that it's better baseball, but the vibes at least are a heck of a lot better. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Mets'd podcast. Make sure you follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you want to see the YouTube version of this, go subscribe to the Mets'd podcast YouTube channel so you can see that. Remember, we do drop some exclusive stuff over there. So there are videos that we have made that you have never heard probably because you only listen to us. So go over to the Mets'd podcast YouTube channel, subscribe over there so you can see them. And if you are listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, whatever it is, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. James, welcome back to the continental United States. How are we feeling?
Feeling great. Steamrolling through jet lag right now, pretending it does not exist. Happy we broke my jinx of being in the same country as the Mets because they hit the walk-off today, and I was home, and I watched the whole game back in my apartment. A nice, relaxing night. Again, pretending jet lag doesn't exist. It's 11:30 and we're recording this, so like technically it's 4:30 in the morning for me, but that's not real. That's not exactly how this works, and they did. But I mean, we're being funny, like save the season, like save the podcast, but it was at least good that the Mets could win a series against the worst team in the National League. Like, that's really good. So that's a really good place to start for this team. And like really sneaky 6-2 in their last 8 games and all inside their division. So maybe they just needed to play a division, but the way the Major League Baseball schedule works, you don't get to play your division for the first 2 months of the season.
No.
Not allowed to. So this is nice. This is good because big series coming up this weekend against the Padres, a team that is worthy of a playoff spot in the National League, a team that the Mets will have to take 2 or 3 off of. They want to actually get anywhere close to being considered for a team that could possibly make the wild card, but just nice to win these 2 in a row and have some good feelings. It does feel good. It just feels good to win. It feels good when you hit a little enough to win.
Yeah, a walk-off home run really changes the vibes because if we look at the notes that you prepare, because James is a big notes guy, the first thing before JD Martinez hitting the walk-off home run was this whole thing sucks. We had a real chance to grab some momentum after big win in Sunday in London and winning 4 of 5, and it's all gone just like that. But then above that, in all capital letters, 4 lines, ha 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 ha, Mets are back. JD Martinez, thank you. Save the season, save the podcast. Mets sneaky 6-2 in last 8. So again, the vibes are high. The boys are feeling good. We're going to talk about everything that went on in this series, of course, because, okay, back to earth. We've done the 10-minute rant negative. We were just probably overly positive maybe for a little bit. There are some things that are still not going right for this team, specifically on the offensive side. They still are in a bit of a malaise. Pete Alonso really hasn't hit in, it feels like, a minute. Brandon Nimmo still can't really figure out how to hit. There are some things that are a little bit concerning, but hey, Francisco Lindor swinging the bat well, JD Martinez swinging the bat well, guys are stepping up.
Yeah, stepping up well, but still just the same bullshit we've talked about this year where there's just no way to align the Mets like 3 core guys where like they're all could be good at the same time, because as Lindor's had like the best stretch of the season, and like it has been a really good stretch for Francisco Lindor. I think since April 18th, which was the day of the standing ovation, I'm pretty sure that he's like a top 7 player in the National League in terms of in terms of WAR. But as this all happened, just get like nonsense out of the way. Like Brandon Nimmo has shifted to being completely and abhorrently lost to the plate. It's one of the worst stretches I can remember for Brandon Nimmo in a very long time. Would you say?
Lindor, we've got the number here. He is 8th in WAR, according to Fangraphs, since the standing ovation. The only guys better, Jose Ramirez, Kyle Tucker, Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Aaron Judge. Pretty fucking good players.
Yeah, so back to the place he always is, which is like very comfortably one of the 10 or 15 best players in baseball. Just this episode, I don't even want to spend any breath talking about Francisco Lindor because again, he's exactly what he is and exactly what he was, and exactly what he will be, which is really good, and that's perfect what he is right now. But it seemed like this week the Brandon Nimmo 3-hole experiment might have finally ended because he was in the 3 spot on Tuesday, and then he got his night off on Wednesday, which is the night the Mets offense had their best day in weeks, and then came back on Thursday, and now he was hitting second. So again, just maybe it's a mental thing for Nimmo by hitting third, but In the 90 plate appearance, he has a 3-hitter. He went 18 for 90 with 6 extra base hits, a 38% strikeout rate, and a 7% walk rate. And he was 15% worse than league average in total with a 222, 300, 333 triple slash line. Very bad. Very bad from Ben Nimmo. It's a shame that going to the leadoff spot helped Francisco Lindor so much. But going to 3, maybe it's just a curse of the 3 holes. This Mets team, I don't know what it is. Maybe whoever hits third just can't find a way to do it. Maybe it's mental, maybe it's physical, maybe it's nonsense, maybe it's coincidence. But frustrating that again, you can't just line these things up. They can't all be good at the same time, especially as Pete just keeps not really being right. And like I was writing all these sad notes as we were getting through this game, and Rodri Munoz was just destroying the Mets. Shout out the Marlins, Skip Schumacher for taking him out. I think it was 80 pitches in 5 innings after with a no
Thank
hitter.
you.
It was the 4th time this season the Mets have been no hit through 5 innings, which is crazy. The Starling Marte double play with the bases loaded made me want to just slap my wall, but I felt like the game was all but over at that point. That was exactly when I started writing these notes and when I got really depressed and being sad about it. But JD Martinez saved it, and like we are also overshadowing the fact that Wednesday night was a great night for the offense. Almost every single player in the starting 9 had a hit. Everyone except Jeff McNeil. Tyrone Taylor had 4 hits. Your boy staving off, keeping that roster spot as much as he can. Marte had a big home run. Bader had a big home run. Lindor had a nice home run. So just that was good, especially after Tuesday when the offense was terrible. But we don't have to talk about that as much now. But they just can't get it right. This offense can't get it right. And as much as the bullpen feels like a problem, and sometimes starting pitching feels inconsistent, the problem with this team is the problem it's always been. It comes right back to the offense. For some reason, they just cannot string enough offense together to actually string enough wins together to get back in the playoff race.
Well, it's a very and this sounds crazy to say because again, Brandon Nimmo is a good player, Pete Alonso's a good player, but the lineup is just so disjointed right now where it's hard to get rallies even going because they're just guys that are in such viciously bad slumps that it just kills the entire flow of the thing. Weirdly enough, I think the Mets have like the 6th most runs in the National League, which is like not the worst, but also not the best either. So it's very confusing. I was talking about it with my dad today, and it was basically like when the Mets score a lot of runs, they give up a lot of runs. When they don't score a lot of runs, they don't score any. It's like they can't just score like 6 a game. They're like 10 or 1. That's what you get.
I will say though, like just saying they have the 6th most runs in the National League, the schedule, it's 10 minutes in, I'm going to talk about schedule twice. The schedule is very weird.
Old man James is back.
It's so weird this year where I think teams are just playing not even close to the same amount of games. It's a very stark thing between, I was looking at a tweet from Cespedes Barbecue the other day, between the Padres and the Braves right now, where the Padres have played 7 more games than the Atlanta Braves so far this season. The Braves only have 2 off days in the next 2 months of baseball.
I love to hear that.
And the Padres have like 7 or 6 of them or something. It's just because the Braves, for some reason, have had a lot of off days so far and a little bit of bad weather in the early part of the season, where the Padres played those games in Korea and haven't had any rainouts because they play in San Diego. So it's just, we gotta see runs per game. I don't know where to find that right now, but it's just that's a weird thing.
I had a Nimmo stat too, by the way, because I know we were talking about Nimmo struggling in the 3-hole, and hopefully, I think that experiment's probably done like you said, but from what I noticed watching him play, and I can rationalize it in Brandon Nimmo's head, he was someone who was extremely patient, saw so many pitches, wasn't really, I don't want to say like people weren't attacking him, but he was just able to command the strike zone in a different way. He had his role. He knew exactly what he's been doing. He's been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years now. Ever since the Mets have gotten him, he's been, this is my role. I'm going to get on base. I don't need to worry about driving in runs. That's a bonus, whatever. Put him in the 3-hole, and it looked like he was stuck in between what he should do. Because if you look at the K rate and walk rate numbers since he got put in the 3-hole May 18th, a 37.8% K rate and a 6.7% walk rate, which is just, I know you have that. Yeah, which is just not Brandon Nimmo. So it's like, I think he was very stuck in between, and I think these numbers prove it even more. And I bet you if you look at the chase and the takes and this and whatever was going on, it's not working. I don't know why the Mets hitters have such mental lapses when it comes to wherever they're hitting in the lineup. It's one of the most bizarre things that I wish we could ever study is just like the mental side of baseball. Can we put like sabermetrics into the mental side of things?
I've seen someone do this. I don't know if it was Driveline, but somebody years ago actually did this for they picked like a few players in the league. They did this for like the clutch factor. And what they actually did was track players' heartbeats in intense situations. Who the hell was it? Brett Phillips talked about it on a podcast years ago, around 2020, that World Series time. And it was just like, like he was one of the guys wearing the heart sensor. Which I wouldn't put it on Brett Phillips. He seems like a guy who he's like the biggest Labrador of baseball player there's ever been. But I think that the way for the Mets to circumvent this issue is what they did tonight and what technically won them the game was just put JD Martinez in that hole. Because JD
Yeah.
Martinez doesn't have this like mental Mets thing going on. He's just a baseball player. Like he doesn't get sunk down by the rest of the guys. Maybe it's because he
He's only
wasn't.
been a Met for like a month.
Yeah, maybe it's because he just got to skip spring training. He didn't have to deal with like Brandon Nimmo's been in the Mets organization for what, like 11 total years now. So
Yeah.
maybe it's 14. No, wait, 2010. No, we did this recently. I don't remember if it was on a bar at the podcast, at a bar on the podcast, but he drafted like 2012. So
Yeah.
12. We're gonna get the 12th anniversary of Brandon Nimmo being drafted soon, or 11th, whatever it is. JD Martinez doesn't have that. JD Martinez just goes out there and just plays baseball. I think it's a 17 game on base streak for JD Martinez. He had 3 hard at
Mhm.
balls tonight, the game winning home run. He hit the double two that like the first rally, and it was Nimmo actually started that first rally, working a nice walk off Anthony Bender right after Rodrigo Munoz left the game, which was the moment where I was like, okay, the Mets actually can
Thank
win
you,
this game.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God, this is nice. But it's just nice. I think I like the flow of the lineup tonight. It was starting Marte in the 5 hole is good, besides that horrible double play. Vientos 6, Terrence, who's just come to this team from the grace of God. Thank
What
God
a
he's
god.
here. Yeah, I like the flow of what this could be tonight, despite getting no hit for 5 innings, despite looking awful for 7. Decent that I think that might be the configuration we can go with for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say. I don't know. I don't know if I buy it as much as you, but I also don't know what the right answer is. The one thing I'll give Carlos Mendoza, and we said this earlier in the year too, I will give him credit. He will switch things up. Like he hit Harrison Bader too in the game where they scored 10 runs, and I was like, what in the fuck is happening?
Lefty,
Harrison
facing a
Bader
lefty.
is it. I know, but I was like, he's hitting second. Oh my god! And first inning, bang, home run, classic Mark Jinx. Happy to do it, but I respect that he's like, if things aren't working, we're going to try to make those changes. Something that I think a lot of coaches and a lot of players sometimes don't even want to do.
Yeah, but that's also we've talked about the fact that sometimes he overdoes that and he'll overtinker. Like there
Fair.
might have to be a situation where like let's see if the lineup configuration works. Let's give it 2 weeks. Maybe sometimes it doesn't feel like he can give it 2 weeks because like it seems like every single loss the Mets have, like you get further and further from playoff spot because literally that is true. But I just like if I think in my head like if I was playing MLB The Show or if I was like drawing up a lineup cards, like I think I would get something very similar to what was up there tonight. So I'm like, okay, this is something that I like, and just I think Vientos in there lengthens it out. I think Starling Marte again has hit well, not well enough to be the worst defender in baseball, but he
No.
has hit pretty well overall. And it's just it was a nicer flow. We'll take the flow.
And of course, we have the King Luis Torrens, who is already worth significantly more WAR than Omar Narvaez was, and it seems like might find a little piece here in a backup catcher, Luis Torrens.
Luis Torrens is already worth about a half a win this season in 7 games played with the Mets, whereas Omar Narvaez was worth negative 0.8 WAR. So the difference between Luis Torrens and Omar Narvaez, a 1.2, 1.3 WAR player, that's the same as Bryson Stott this year. So
Whoa.
the difference between Luis Torrens and Omar Narvaez is exactly one Bryson Stott, and that took 1 week to get to that point. So I'm happy the Mets had the balls to make that move, and I'm very happy that Luis Torrens is here because he threw out a base runner tonight. He almost threw out a second one, but Jeff McNeil dropped the
Yeah.
ball, and it's just his at bats feel a little bit better. Feels like there's a better flow. It feels like he's just a good guy to have in the locker room, and I love that Gary and Keith talk a lot about that. Mendoza was like, I have to get this guy. This guy's available. Like, I want to get him. We need a catcher. Like, this is what we have to do. And it says a lot that the Mets, because we have to talk about the Mets, released Tomas Nido in favor of Luis Torrens. And we think very favorably of Tomas Nido. Mark's pouring one out right now for the YouTube viewers. He's a good ball player. He's one of those guys that we're going to talk about in like 40 years. So remember,
Oh,
you
I
guys
can't wait.
remember Tomas Nido? Like, this should be some stupid when you're talking about random Mets. Tomas Nido, Ty Wigington, I don't know, some other dumb Mets, but we look favorably on.
Okay, another Met that we look favorably on. Omir Santos.
Omir
Love Omir
Santos,
Santos.
Scott Harrison Jr. for that time, Fernando Tatis
Soleil
for those.
Soler.
Yeah, just good time Mets. That was like, well, happy about this. I think it is also relevant that Tomas Nido was released with this because like we've heard Francisco Lindor say on the Mets sanctioned social media channels that Tomas Nido is his best friend on the team.
Yeah.
Like their wives like hang out all the time. Like they were legitimately like some very good friends. So it's cool that our general manager is cutthroat. He did something not
Yes.
that cutthroat with the bullpen, which we'll talk about in a little bit as we keep getting through like the real meat and potatoes this episode. But Luis Torrens being on this team seems like a massive help. But also just a massive help to have Francisco Alvarez back for these couple of games. He didn't really make a strong impact. He had to hit and 2 RBIs in the game on Wednesday night, but just you could just feel a difference. When he was catching Tylor Megill on Tuesday night, like you could see the way he was setting up, the way he was like pumping his fist, like there's energy back there that we haven't had that's like it's palpable and it runs through the whole team.
Lisan Al-Gaib, he brings that tea. He's got the testosterone. I know he's been in the clubhouse like at the home games just because he's been around, but there does feel a different energy with Francisco Alvarez being there. And even JD Martinez, not necessarily leaning towards the Francisco Alvarez commentary, but ever since the players meeting, he says the vibe in the clubhouse has been better. It's been different. It's been looser. That's all stuff I like to hear because the Mets were playing so damn tight before, and I think they're 8-4 since that in player only meeting or whatever it is.
And it's also just like couldn't have got worse than that. And these guys
No,
were just like, let's just play some baseball. We're all professional baseball players. We're all good at this. Like, let's just do this. It also helps the schedule got a little bit lighter after that too. But it's nice. It's nice to even win the games against the light ones because the Mets weren't even really doing that very much sometimes either. They sweep the Pirates. I remember that. Those were good times back in the day.
that was good.
But that's fun. I don't know. This was a series that like almost was really bad, but wound up being pretty good.
Yeah, so it's weird. I came in ready to start screaming and yelling, but instead we get to be positive. Now, one thing I want to talk about, so let's talk about little Tylor Megill.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Big Drip because he pitched super well again. He had that one rough inning, but before that, he was pretty dominant. And I know Gary and Keith, again, were hammering home the stats about the Marlins hitters, that they're the most aggressive team in baseball. They refuse to walk. They love to swing and miss. It's pretty funny how as soon as you get rid of Luis Arias, all their like patience numbers and strikeout numbers and all that just go completely in the tank because this team loves to swing and they have little to no discipline.
Yeah, and it's, again, we don't expect the team to have any discipline either. Like this is the
No.
worst team in the National League. Like this team,
They're better than the Rockies.
I guess they're better than the Rockies. The Rockies did have the 7-game winning streak that might give them a better record than the Marlins,
Sure.
but I don't know. If those two teams went up a 7-game series, it'd be close.
That'd be a good World Series.
I'd like to see that 7-game series. It'd be such a weird difference of park factors too. Like going from Colorado to Miami back and forth. Every single one of those games we played so differently. Oh, that'd be funny as hell. Now I kind of just want that to happen. There should be the bad.
Should we go to Miami for the series when the Rockies go into Miami?
We should also go to Colorado. It's probably happened already, if I'm going to be honest. I think I actually do remember the Rockies already playing the Marlins in Colorado. But I don't care about arguing who the worst team nationally is. The Marlins fucking suck, and it would have been miserable to have lost series to them. But Tylor Megill, I didn't like a narrative that I was seeing online by people that Tylor Megill like collapsed and like unraveled again, because I don't think that was a fair estimation of what happened in this game. Because I think that like from watching it and just like kind of taking in Tylor Megill for who he is right now, it feels like he's very much become a different pitcher. And it's not just the fact that he throws like these 4 splitters a game that we're heartbound because they're fun, but it's not just that. Like he did so many little things in this start. He's done these last couple starts where he's now mixing 6 different pitches. He's throwing at least 5 different pitches for guys on each side of the plate.
Cutter.
The cutter was really good. It moves in a weird way. Like it doesn't look good. It's not an aesthetically pleasing pitch, but I think it's like a little surprising. So people wind up missing it because it's in between the fastball and the slider, velocity, movement, everything. But something else I love from Megill, that was something that we always wanted him to do more when he came up, which is something that we hear veteran pitchers talk about a lot, is like the thing that kind of makes you a real starting pitcher versus the thing that makes you just a guy that pitches the beginning of games. Is he seemed to have a control over his velocity he did not have his first couple of years in the major leagues, where he was oscillating between his good old like 97, 95, 97, 95. And even that 5th inning when he was struggling in the at bat against Jake Berger, threw his hardest pitch of the game, 98 miles an hour. So the fact that he was really missing bats left and right, he was mixing all his pitches all around the zone. The command wasn't really there, but the stuff was good enough and the Marlins are not good, so it all kept working. But the fact he was able to maintain what he had to maintain in the tank and throw his hardest pitch when the game was at its most critical juncture was a cool thing for me to see with Tylor Megill in terms of maturity and development that we hadn't seen yet so far from him.
Did the fastball have any extra jump? It looked like it was zipping in there in this game. So I don't know if you looked at those numbers necessarily, but it looked at least visually better.
They've been jumping every single start for him. He hasn't had any starts where the fastball's really wavered. Like he's getting the best extension he's ever gotten in his career on it. This start specifically, again, he was sitting 96 firmly the whole time. Like everything was between 95 and 97. So it all looked good. And he was just kept filling up his own fastball. But I think what we might be seeing and experiencing, what opposing hitters might be experiencing too, is that the jumping of the fastballs because there's so many other things happening now. Whereas I think that the Tylor Megill, when he used to just be fastball slider, fastball slider, fastball slider, fastball slider, it gets a little repetitive. And he can't fastball slider because they're both good, but they're not that good. So the fact that you're going to see a random splitter and you're going to see more of those cutters, and like that's pretty cool.
Oh, I just had a brain blast. I don't know if you watched the Lance Brosdowski video about Paul Skeens versus Shohei Ohtani. It's all going to come back together. Don't worry.
Okay.
But he talked about this new theory called pitch decay, or pitch decay.
Yeah.
And basically, how Paul Skeens, when he gave up that home run to Ohtani, it was kind of inevitable because that was the seventh fastball. He had thrown him in like 10 pitches.
Yeah.
And there's an idea that, like, after a certain amount of pitches, the batter gets a massive advantage, but then that's as much of an advantage as he can physically get because he's seen it so many times, nothing's really going to change. And with Tylor Megill now having those 6 pitches, it almost limits that decay because he has those other options. He can go to other things because he's not throwing his fastball and slider 95% of the time.
I think it's a great point. I love Lance. Lance does amazing content. We're gonna have Lance on next Cubs. We have to actually text him. We have to remember that. We'll
Yes,
DM him this weekend because next weekend they're going to the Cubs. So we'll try to get him on for 10 minutes to our Cubs preview next week. Both good friends of Lance. Lance is the man. That also probably is a mental game of it too, because if you can just kind of triangulate where you're being pitched and what's going to throw, then you can start to guess. Then you can get within 50%. If you get within 50%, you basically know what's going to come next as a hitter. But again, the fact that Tylor Megill in this game and all these last couple starts he's throwing 4 or 5 different pitches against hitters from each side of the plate. Like, that's a massive thing. And even just to talk about like the unraveling that happened to him in that 5th inning, like it was a nice single by Tim Anderson, who reinvigorated his career this week against the Mets. And then Nick Fortes hit a ground ball to Vientos. Vientos made a nice pick and then throw across body to Pete at first base. And Tim Anderson, for some reason, now he's showing effort. He made a great heads-up play from first base, getting to third and a ground ball third. He's head first slide to beat the throw by a little bit. And then he had a really tough walk against Jazz Chisholm McGill, where Jazz had 4 foul balls on some tough pitches and then wound up drawing the walk as McGill started to lose his zone. And then Brian De La Cruz did a double in the gap that Harrison Bader almost made a great play on it. And it kind of made me think a little bit, like glimmer back to what Starling Marte said, to blaming the Mets for the drop ball in the London series, because Bader at the beginning of that play on the righty Brian De La Cruz, who I don't know, I don't have any data in front of me, but he feels like someone's often been a pull hitter. He was in the right center field gap, and then he runs all the way across. He gets to the ball. We just can't make a spectacular catch or run scores on that. And then Vientos almost makes a great play on Jake Burger ground ball. But I just don't think he had the awareness to know how slow Jake Burger was, and he made an errant throw when he could have waited an extra beat. It wasn't called an error in the box score because, again, Burger was close on it anyway, but I think Vientos could have taken a beat, and that was kind of the end of it. Now all of a sudden 3 runs are in, and then you give up another run late, and that's how you lose a game when you only score 2 runs and you only get 1 run scoring hit. But everything else that Megill did was really good. And also, just another quick mention about this splitter that he's been throwing. He's not throwing a lot of them, so it's hard to really say this is the thing that's changing him so far, but it just so feels like this is a pitch that can transform him into like being this guy who's still stuck in the middle, still trying to tread water to become a starter, to get to the next level and be a guy who we can just bank on this rotation for years to come. He threw a splitter in this game 379 RPMs. That's one of the slowest. That's one of the least spinning splitters in baseball this season. And that one that he threw to Nick Gordon, an 0-2 pitch, it literally it floated like a knuckleball. It was incredible what he's able to do. It's such a unique pitch. There's so much potential in that pitch. I really want to see that happen. It's just, he missed tons of bats. He had the 7 strikeouts in the first 4 innings. I think the Marlins only had 3 or 4 hard hit balls. Like, he was really good. And I'm more confident in Megill than I ever have been watching almost every single start he's ever had as a major leaguer.
He loves sending that text. What are you doing? You around? Can you talk? Can you talk?
What are you doing?
What's going on? And I bite every single time. I like even watching. I'm like, damn it, I'm back again. I'm so back.
It is. But again, it's like, why not be back? It's like, again, like, he has showed material changes. Like, we're not just saying this to have fun. We're saying it because there's something new here. If there was nothing new, we wouldn't say it. And that brings it to the next guy, David Peterson. There's nothing new.
Which
I'm not gonna say.
Yeah,
he is David Peterson.
The text came in and I said, nah, dude, I fell for this before. I'm not doing it again. You won't get me this time, David Peterson. Because again, it's just like, it's crazy to think about how, like, because I see the stat, 2 whiffs on 47 swings. You're right. That is legit insane. You couldn't have said it better in the notes. Because, what was it, 2 years ago, that slider was one of the best sliders in Major League Baseball. And all of a sudden, it's just dead. Like, what happened?
He had a 2-month stretch in 2022 where he was top 15 in the whole league in strikeout minus walk rate. And that was the reason we were like, similar to Megill right now, where it's like, if you're doing something that's really good, we'll give you the credit and say you're doing it really good. But it's not happening right now for Peterson. And it's back to sinker sliders. And they're both fine pitches. When I watch him pitch, I'm like, these are good. But I still just think we're at this point with David Peterson, we still just can't really command him. He can't really command his own body. But I want to go back to the 2 whiffs on 47 swings, because like I wrote in the notes, like you just said, that's legit insane. And I was like, that's so insane. I really want to look at how insane this is. So this year in Major League Baseball, there have been 2,098 appearances by pitchers who threw at least 50 pitches in an outing.
Oh
This is
boy.
only the 38th time this season that one of those
Oh.
pitchers only had 2 or fewer whiffs. And if you bump that number down to guys who threw at least 80 pitches in their outing, this is only the 8th time that has happened. 2 or fewer whiffs. 2,098 appearances by guys who've thrown at least 50 pitches. The 38th time that has happened. It's crazy. It's unbelievable that he was able to miss that few bats. But again, like that's the night the Mets offense breaks out. That's the night you murder Braxton Garrett. So it's like it's fine. Like that's baseball, Susan, and you can win a game. And it's just I get a little frustrated with how cutthroat some things the Mets front office and the Mets organization has been this year with letting Omar Narvaez go, dumping Joey Wendell, both those guys with guaranteed
Good.
contracts. Yeah, it's good. But then for some reason we have David Peterson in this role and even Jose Quintana
Mm,
because he seems like maybe the next guy who might fall victim to this, where it's just like these guys are not better than Christian Scott and Jose Budo. They're just not. They
no.
don't give you as good of a chance to win. I understand it in terms of like asset management. Like you can cut a hitter, it doesn't matter that much, but you don't want to cut a pitcher because you don't want to just let innings go for free. And I'm sure every day David Stern's like, okay, maybe I could trade Jose Quintana. I could probably trade Jose Quintana. It's just 1 year control. I'll eat half the money. I'll get
The
one.
Angels want him back.
I'll get anything for Jose Quintana. But it's just like it, though it's a weird thing that baseball front offices have to do. Where you have to balance asset management versus giving my team the best chance to win every single day. And it's a shitty spot the Mets are in right now because you want to win every game you can because you're trying to scratch and claw back into a race. But maybe we as fans care much more about this race than the people in the
Possible.
building. Yeah, which was like foreshadowing the other stuff we're going to talk about. But that's just the reality of it. Like David Peterson right now is probably the 8th best starting pitcher in the Mets organization, and Jose Quintana is probably the 9th. But they're going to pitch every 5 days because that's just how it works.
Yeah, I've given up. I shouldn't say given up. Given up's not the right word.
No, he
David
is exactly what he is.
I was just about to say, David Peterson, what I
Fine.
see is what I get. I'm never expecting more, and I'll expect a little bit less at times. But I'm not gonna. I've given up on the hope of David Peterson pop off. That's where I'll go. He is this pitcher, and until he proves otherwise for a sustained period of time, I will not believe it.
I read a cool article by Robert Lauren Baseball Perspective. I think it was Robert Lauren Baseball Perspectives last week about pitchers having multiple different fastballs and how valuable that is. Because we learn more about the way hitters swing with all this new swing data from Baseball Savant, I feel like more people are now opening up to like journalists, reporters, everything about this stuff. And you could just kind of feel that when these pitchers have these other tools, well, especially the guys that don't throw 97 miles an hour, like
Yeah.
take those guys out. And I love thinking about someone like Justin Steele or like Javier Assad when I think about this,
Mm.
where it's like Orrin Peterson was at his best when he was throwing sinkers and fastballs together. You just want to be able to have both of those weapons because you don't want to throw your sinkers against guys on both sides, both handedness. And usually pitchers don't really like working inside against both sides of the plate. So you want to be able to have different pitches to move a little bit differently so you get guys differently. And we talked a lot about on this show about how it's rare to find a hitter that has a positive run value against both fastballs and sinkers. It's a weird thing
Mm.
because those are like different kinds of swings will get different results against those kind of pitches. Like if you do a fastball swing, I heard Sarah say this in Rates and Barrels week. Fastball swing and a sinker is not going to be that good. Same with the other way around.
No.
And Peterson he can't really ever seem to get those two things working at the same time. And the rest of the repertoire is not really just good enough on its own to make it happen. It's just I don't know. It's just still stuck in that same spot. It just can't get out of it.
All right, James, go off about your king, Dedniel Nunez. Did you see some of the stats that have been coming out about this guy?
Incredible. You got to talk a little bit. I'm just talking about pitching now for the last 10 minutes. You got to say some stuff. But Dedniel
I'll find the
Nunez
Dedniel stat.
fully saved the game on Wednesday because when he came in the game, David Peterson had like 5 tough innings, and the Mets were only winning 5-4, and it felt like anything could happen at that point. Like you asked this iteration of the Mets bullpen to get 12 outs, like I don't know what's going to happen, but Dedniel came in 2 1/3, 5 strikeouts, and it's just fastballs and sliders, and you cannot touch the guy.
There are 3 relief pitchers in Major League Baseball history. Shout out Michael Mayer for this one. With the following in their first 10 career relief appearances: more than 24 strikeouts, less than or equal to 3 walks, 0 hit by pitch. Jim Merritt, don't know who that is. Brandon Woodruff, Dedniel Nunez. He's doing things we've almost never seen before.
I'm gonna look up Jim Merritt's baseball reference page, see if we got anything here. But a lefty from the '70s, I like that a lot. Still alive, still putting around out there in
Good for Jim.
California. 80 years old. He debuted in 1965, August 2nd, 1965. That's
Wow.
crazy. He debuted before my mother was born. But yeah, do you see he had a decent little career out there? 3.37 ERA though in the 60s and 70s isn't that great for a career, but that's fine. Another good stat about Dedniel Nunez. If you take every pitcher in the league and make the minimum amount of innings pitched, 15, because he has 15 and thirds innings pitched this year. He has the second highest strikeout minus walk rate in all of baseball,
Whoa.
only behind Mason Miller,
Whoa.
about 40%. He's just real life good. He's just actually a good reliever. We did it again. David
We
Stearns
did it.
did it again. We did it, Joe.
Masterclass.
Yeah. But the other problem about this is that other stuff we were alluding to, because I want to talk about Edwin Diaz briefly too. But when Edwin was activated on Thursday, we sent down Andy Young, who
Danny.
I keep saying Danny Young.
Andy Young was the guy that was traded for Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah, and he's also Andy Green, Mets player development
Yes.
director. But Danny Young was awesome. He's ripping off sweepers. I think Prospectus shouted him out as like one of the highest graders on their Stuff Plus model. And like he looked great. Like he threw a frisbee against Bryce Harper in London. Like he had awesome stuff. And this is again goes to be like you can be cutthroat with your hitters and let guys go, but with pitching he just has an option. And Adam Ottavino doesn't. Even though Adam Ottavino looks like he might be half cooked, this guy has to lose his spot. And like Gary and Keith were talking about tonight, that like it feels like he's going to come back, but we can't. He's just not here right now. We're giving him his credit, and he's not even on the team right now.
Yeah, Adam Ottavino he's in dangerous territory. He's medium rare chicken. And you're like, I'm not going to eat this. But am I still going to am I going to put this back on the grill, see if it warms up, see if it gets to the temperature I need? Because he does look toast right now, and it does suck that a guy like Danny Young does get option doing nothing wrong whatsoever, and that is
everything right almost.
Yeah, almost except having an option. That was his fault. You should have signed a guaranteed contract. Should have been better earlier.
Dude's just good. He's legitimately a good relief pitcher. He's probably like the fourth most trustworthy reliever in the whole bullpen. He's in the minor leagues right now. But came back for Edwin. It was really nice to see Edwin pitch on Thursday night. A really crispy 1-2-3 inning. He almost actually got to 100 miles an hour. I thought he got to 100 miles an hour. Everyone said it was 100 miles an hour. So I went full steam ahead and I wrote a tweet and I did a tweet myself. I got all these fun stats about the last time the Mets threw a pitch 100 miles an hour over 600 days ago. It's the second longest active streak in the major league. So now it's a battle between
Who
Edwin
beat
Diaz.
us?
The Red Sox.
Oh, nice.
By like 2 extra weeks. The Rockies got one this year. We were the only 3 teams last year not throw a pitch 100 miles an hour. So tweets back in the draft, ready to go whenever it happens. I'm ready for it. But just really nice to see Edwin also feel comfortable. Also very nice, because what we talked about last time with Edwin, for the Mets to be upfront about his role, to be honest about it, to show confidence in him, and say he is the closer. He's coming back as the closer. And in the game where they were trailing by 1 in the 9th inning at home, put the closer in the game who hadn't pitched.
Yes.
Perfect. That's what you do. And you know what? You got him a win. I'm sure wins are fucking stupid. I don't care about wins. I don't think anybody does anymore. But for Edwin to just have the W in his name and the box score after this one, probably a nice feeling.
Edwin Diaz. Edwin. That's his name. It's literally in his name.
And that's it. Won a series against the Marlins. Thank God.
Thank God. We do have a little bit of a what's the word when you're amendment maybe? I don't know. We misspoke in the last episode, but we also got bad info. Shout out Clay, shout out my dad. Both of them said Buster Olney, said the Edwin Diaz thing. It was actually everybody's favorite, Tim Kirkshin.
Love Tim.
He's the only Edwin Diaz ever. Like, I mean, that makes sense, but it hurts me that Tim Kirkshin said that. I would never say a bad thing about that guy. I just have blind hate for Buster Olney.
It just tells me that Tim is hanging out Buster too much. Like, that's the problem right there. Yeah, ESPN, that's all speaking to ESPN. And just some other housekeeping thing. Keith was in such rare form doing the game on Thursday. He was insane. He called Rodney Munoz, the Marlins starting pitcher, a chunk.
A chunk?
He said, look at the legs on this guy. He's a real chunk. And then he just went into a diatribe because Luis Severino made a really nice play in the mound. He feels his position very well, Luis Severino. Really good athlete. And then I know he keeps not striking people out, but keeps not giving up runs. I don't know. I know I shouldn't, but I really like Luis Severino and everything he does. But he feels his position really well. He had a play where he like basically batted down like a medium line drive right back at him. And he went behind the mound and made like a sharp throw to first. And he had another one a couple innings later where a bunt was popped up with 2 men on, so he couldn't call an infield fly, where he caught the ball that was like shoulder height and turned around and spun to second base. He missed a double play by like a half a foot, but it got Keith like on a sad memory trip where he was talking about that exact same play, misplaying it in Game 7 of 1988. I'm sure my dad's going to text me about this in the morning. And he says, after that, the floodgates open for the Dodgers. And Keith says he still blames himself for that play. And it was the single worst and most regrettable play of his entire major league career.
I mean, that's
Legendary.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, I love Keith.
Awesome.
He also was complaining about, and he was like self-aware. He was old man yelling at the clouds. I think there was a hit through the hole with runners in scoring position, like 2 outs or something. I think McNeil was shifted over at one point. And Keith's like, I know the numbers and the analytics say that that's the right play. He's like, but the player in me just says, there's ducks on the pond. There's guys to be put in. I'm gonna find that hole. You just can't give it to me like that. It's too easy. And Gary kind of like laughed about it, like, oh, here Keith goes again. And he just like went on for like a couple minutes. He's like, all right, my bad. Back to the game. Like I've been doing my old man thing again.
I also think that Keith Hernandez called Tim Anderson a former batting champion 25 times this series.
He was a former batting champion.
And I think the series was a good a good symbol for how much the batting championship means in modern baseball, where you see Jeff McNeil and Tim Anderson playing, and statistically they're two of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball this year. And you're like, oh, batting champion. Maybe it's not always the most important thing.
Yeah, maybe batting average is not linear in terms of how good you'll be the next season.
So that was the one batting average doesn't matter. I mentioned this podcast. We got to do it once a show. And then
that was it.
Last thing we're going to talk about here before we get to the weekly prospect report, because we actually have a real prospect report for the first time in a while, because I'm not in the UK anymore. I'm actually just home and stable probably for a little while. We're going to start doing some trade deadline stuff soon. And I think one thing I want to talk about is start to tease some trade deadline content is a super interesting comment that Steve Cohen made. I don't know if it was after the London series and the day off, somewhat he doesn't press availability. And he said that he doesn't think the Mets approach to the trade deadline will be black and white. And I think that's like exactly not what most Mets fans want to hear, because I think as fans, we're like buyers or sellers. And I think I saw our boy Mike Marino have a tweet tonight where we put on a poll. We'll have Mike on around the trade deadline for sure. Probably him, Pat Ragazzo, maybe Will Salmon. Where he said Mets are going to be buyers or sellers to trade deadline. And I think the reality is, especially if you look back at a lot of the trade deadlines that David Stearns oversaw with the Brewers, it's probably going to be some horrible combination of something in between. And it's going to be so not satisfying for us.
Yeah, the Brewers were a playoff team and traded the best closer in baseball, Josh Hader, at one point. They were like, don't need you. We got to get rid of you. Your value is at the highest it's ever going to be. We have the opportunity to get a lot back. Smell you later. Welcome to San Diego. I think that's where they traded him.
Yeah.
So
they got Robert Gasser, who actually came up and was a really good pitcher this year, but now he's about to get Tommy John surgery. It would have been so funny that he would that actually fueled a playoff run for them years after this happened.
Yeah. So we will talk about it a lot more, because there is a lot to be talked about.
So
there's a lot to be said, especially on the Pete Alonso front. That seems to be the one that everyone's talking about. But the Mets are in a really interesting spot where there's a lot of players that I think will be moved and can be moved, along with guys that they could bring in that maybe you're not necessarily thinking of. They're not going to get any of the big sexy names, I don't think, by any means, but there are guys that could help this team for the future. Like you said, we've seen David Stearns do with the Brewers in the past. So we're finally back. We're all ready to get back on the content grind, get ready, a little more organized. Expect that in the next coming episodes. Now onto the prospect report. James, who are we starting it off with? Is it your boy Christian Scott?
I mean, I guess like he's once again now the best, like the Mets best prospect playing in the minor leagues right now. We're getting Drew Gilbert back soon. Jet Williams had wrist surgery, so he's probably going to be out for another basically 2 months. It's going to be a bit like a lost season for Jet Williams, which sucks. But also last season was so good. He like basically was a full season ahead of schedule. So even next year as a 21-year-old playing AA baseball, still very ahead of schedule. It's great.
Yeah.
But it's weird we're back here talking about Christian Scott in these prospect reports, because again, I think of all the Mets healthy starting pitchers right now, he might be the best one, but he is pitching in Syracuse for whatever reason. And it seems like I will give the Mets credit for sticking to a plan with Christian Scott. They said they sent him down to control his innings, his workload, and also because he had these extra off days and don't need a 6-man rotation right now, which changes next week. So I'm thinking his next start, which is going to be scheduled for, I believe, next Tuesday in Texas against the Rangers. That feels like it's going to be when Christian Scott returns. But something that we've seen a lot of teams do recently for all over baseball, we hear about all the time, innings limit. I think it's really kind of a stupid idea. You should have a pitch limit.
Of course it's stupid, yeah.
And Christian Scott, both of these starts he's had in Syracuse, 59 pitches, 60 pitches. Bang. It seems like it's a very hard line of pitches. And one of them was 5 innings, and one of them was 3 2/3 innings. But 60 pitches. You get it out of 60 pitches. I think that's cool that the Mets seem to be modernizing their approach to pitcher workload. His last start, Syracuse was good again. Only 3 2/3 innings. He had 6 strikeouts. Of course, he gave up a solo home run. That's just what's going to happen. But I think I'm hoping next Tuesday we see Christian Scott. Next Tuesday or Wednesday in Texas.
It'd be nice. It would be good to see him back on the mound, because he is very good. He's, like you said, one of the better pitchers in this entire organization.
Probably number one right now.
Not on the roster, so that's crazy. Also, Kodai Senga update through a bullpen. Good.
great. And again, we've seen that update like 6 times in the last 9 weeks.
Yes,
So whatever.
but he was smiling this time in the video, so that's
There you go.
good.
And him and Tylor Megill rally capping in
Yeah,
last night for the rally, and Tylor Megill was dancing afterwards. So seems like the vibes are better. But another update again. Can't believe we're here. Almost
I
makes me a
know.
little bit sad. Brett Baty, you guys wouldn't believe he's crushing AAA. Oh my god.
He's too good for the level. Who saw that coming?
It's so annoying. I wish there was another level that minor leagues that was actually real, because Brett Baty's over here just mauling 92-mile-an-hour fastballs and looping curveballs and learning nothing.
But there is a real development. Playing a little second base. Will Salmon put out that report. We saw some clips. He is playing second base is a sentence. That is a thing that has been said. That is a thing we've seen.
It's fine. However, he's going to play second base. Going to play second base. I saw a lot of people running with a video about Brett Baty turning a double play. Like SNY tweeted, Syracuse Mets tweeted it, like all the classic Mets influencers tweeted it. But it's also just like, I don't know if anyone actually watched him turn that double play, because from when he got the ball second, I don't even fault Brett Beatty for it either, because
It's awkward.
It's weird. He's never done this before. Like, that's hard. Like, it was
Not
like
a long
1
time
Mississippi,
at least.
2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, catch the ball, step on the base, twist your body, make a throw to first. It's hard, but seeing him do it, I was like, that's nice he did it. But like, everyone's like, wow, Brett Baty double play. I'm like, that was like a 4 Mississippi count to get that ball out of his glove. But still good he did it. It's still good that he's in a game playing second base. It didn't fuck with his head enough. He still had 3 hits in the game. He's like 140% better than league average at AAA right now. It's like whatever. But interesting that this something is actually going to happen, because there's a good chance this Mets team gets weird after the trade deadline. I'd be down for some Brett Baty second base. I think fuck it, right? Why not?
I mean, probably not going to hit any worse than Jeff McNeil right now. So I don't think there's anything to lose. I like, again, Mets being a little creative. I'm cool with it. The usual thing that the Mets do in the past was, you can't play your position. How about left field, buddy? And they did try that last year. This year they're trying second base. So I'm down for it. And I'm sure Brett's down for it too. Whatever gets him back to the major leagues quickest, I'm sure he's going to be willing to do that. Speaking of someone who's trying to get to the MLB quick, Luisangel Acuna. Now, what we're going to tell you guys is, don't believe Twitter, because if you type in Luisangel Acuna on Twitter, you would think that this guy is just going to come up and be his brother. And we've told you many, many times, and I love James's comp to Whit Merrifield. I think that's a really good one. Super juiced Whit Merrifield. Whit Merrifield with testosterone, with a little machismo.
Michael
Garcia. And while he has had a good month, he's still really not hitting for any power whatsoever. It is high average. He is getting on base. 350 on base is pretty solid. Like, that's a good thing over the last month. But he's still just about league average. And again, he's an easy player to tweet out. He's an easy player for engagement. He's an easy player for likes. That's why we do this prospect report, because we want to tell you about all the other guys that are doing good stuff. And we have some more names after this. I have a couple sleepers that nobody's really speaking of that are doing really well. He's still got a long way to go. It feels less and less likely with the current build of this Mets team that we'll see him at the major league level this year, unless there is some drastic change.
Yeah, it's just through this point in the season, again, like a lot of things that you see on Twitter makes it seem nice. Now, we talked about our top 10 Mets prospects a couple weeks ago now on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen that, check that out on the YouTube channel. But I talked about that there are a lot of things that he is doing quite well. And he hits the ball hard more often than most players hit the ball hard. And that's a really relevant thing. It's a hard thing to teach. It's a hard thing to really get better at. Being able to swing hard, make contact hard, hit the ball hard, and do that. But there's still a lot of things he just isn't able to do right now. He's not really able to work a count. Like, the thing about Luisangel Acuna is that he's a very aggressive hitter. He doesn't let a lot of counts develop. He's only walking 6% of the time, striking 18% of the time. Like, he's in and out of these at-bats quickly. He's also really fast. He's stolen 22 bases in 60 games at AAA. So he's just, every time he does get on base, he's taking advantage of pitchers, taking advantage of catchers, and doing that. That's a skill that likely will translate. But it seems like as he moves through these at-bats very quickly, the pitch selection is something that's not really there, because he's hitting ground balls about 60% of the time at AAA. And hitting ground ball 60% of the time is a bad thing. But something that's much worse is his pop-up rate, infield fly rate, is 34%.
That's crazy high.
So a third of the balls he puts in play are pop-ups in the infield. The pop-up in the infield is literally the worst thing you could ever do as a baseball player.
Can't do anything.
It'll never ever wind up balls. The worst contact, especially got Luisangel Acuna so fast. If you look around balls against minor leaguers, sometimes you will find a way to get hits there. So There are things he's doing well. There are things he's doing better. Again, the last month has been fine for him. It's 290 average, 350 on base, 9 multi-hit games in his last 23 games. But AAA, the offensive environment is so crazy. It's still just about league average. So it's not like the context of seeing a 290 hitter doesn't mean like a 290 hitter like you think of a 290 hitter, because the average there is about a 290 hitter. And the power there is crazy because they're using a juiced up baseball, and play discipline should be like really good for players because the strike zone's kind of fake. You can kind of manipulate the strike zone if you really know like what you're doing in terms of your patience and your approach. He's not really able to do any of that yet. There's all the skills that we wanted Luisangel Acuna to show progress in this year. None of the things he showed progress in. He's even regressed in some of those places. So I think it's just a situation where he has a last name and he was part of a big trade, but I don't want him to play any games in major leagues this year.
No, he's
And
not ready.
there shouldn't be a rush at all for it too. Like it's fine if he has to play 150 more games in AAA. It's really okay because there's just
I
a
think
lot.
the Brett Baty second base shows that too a little bit.
Yeah, right. Like you just gotta play some games there, and it's just to take some time and do some stuff.
Yep. All right. Tell me about Brandon Sproat, because I've been seeing on Twitter people were freaking out a little bit because he's just like hasn't really pitched in like a week.
Yeah, it's weird. I wish I could tell you something about Brandon. Like I wish he could make another start and
You got
keep
nothing for me?
and keep furiously moving on the train to being one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. Like I know he is, but it's just he hasn't pitched in 12 days. It's a weird vibe.
Yeah.
He's supposed to pitch on Friday. I've heard murmurs, but I don't see that confirmed anywhere. Someone on Twitter, Ernest Dove, said that there were like murmurs of like in quotes a freak injury.
I don't like those words.
No, but he also said that it's supposedly nothing. He's been assured it's not serious. But
What
whatever.
freak injury is not serious?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't
like
know.
really good, really big splinter in your toe. Like
Really
what
big
would that
splinter.
be?
Maybe split a nail. I don't know. Whatever it is. Maybe it's like the world's biggest blister. But we're just not going to talk about it more
Okay.
than that because it's a little scary and the rhetoric is strange. And we're just going to leave it there.
Okay. Blade Tidwell. Saw his numbers in AAA. Confusing because that first AAA
Strange.
start, great. Since then, not bad, but not good.
It's funny. That first AAA start, I think it was 4 walks and 3 strikeouts. I'm pretty sure his most recent AAA start, which was his third, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the same 4 walks and 3 strikeouts. The difference was this one he allowed 3 home runs. And AAA is weird. The same way we talk about how it's weird to evaluate Luisangel Acuna as a hitter in AAA, it's probably even harder to do that as a pitcher because the ABS strike zones is strange. It's just weird, and the baseball they use is weird. So that stuff's strange, but it seems like that Blade Tidwell, because again, we have all the data on these guys in AAA. It's a blessing when these guys get AAA. Brooklyn, Binghamton, we know nothing. St. Lucie and Syracuse, we know everything. It's just the city has to start with an S, not with a B. Because there's only 2 options in the Mets minor league system: S or B. We need S, not B. He seemed like he was really excited for that first AAA start. His fastball is 96, 97 miles an hour. His slider was like 84. His changeup was 82. Like his cutter was 88. Like everything was getting in there. And since that start, his velocity's ticked down a lot. And Blade has like a fine fastball. It's a fastball that's getting better, but it's not like a wow blow by you fastball. So when his fastball goes from average velocity of like 96, 97 to 92, 93, getting 94, it changes a lot about that fastball. It makes it much more hittable. Players will swing and miss at it less often. And everything his last start was down a few ticks. Kind of has me a little worried about Blade Tidwell because everything was down 2-3 miles an hour across the board. His release point was a little bit different, which doesn't actually mean anything. But just to me, it's a guy who's like the mechanics aren't that right. So either it's just it was a bad day, or it's like you're kind of favoring something, so your arm slot's changing a little bit. You're not able to repeat. But a lot of 3 home runs, like I said, I wouldn't take this like start to start like it's going to change the idea of a guy going forward. I still think Blade's home is probably a guy who's like more of a 4-5 in rotation than like a 1-2. Maybe winds up somewhere in between, but interesting to track start to start. Seeing major velocity changes is a little scary.
Yeah, no, of course. So you could something to keep an eye on. Another guy whose start to starts have been a little interesting, Jonah Tong, getting challenged at high A. That's supposed to happen for, what is he, 20 years old, 21, whatever he is. He's a young whippersnapper, but he's getting challenged now. The K rate is still good, 28.2% right now at high A in Brooklyn, not the 52, 53% that we saw in Port St. Lucie that got him called up, and everyone was like, who is this fucking guy? He is still walking a lot of guys, 11% walk rate, which is a little bit high. But again, this is a 20-year-old pitching at high A, well fast tracking at what we ever thought we would see from Jonah Tong. So there's no huge updates necessarily on him because, again, he's still kind of going through those growing pains of getting to the next level, things that you see a lot of players do. We'll just keep an eye on him.
Yeah, it's nice that the walks have trended down. And in Brooklyn, his first 2 starts in 9 innings, he walked 7 batters, and since then he hasn't walked more than 2 in any outing.
That's
Some
good.
of
Yeah.
those outings have not been very long. It seems like it's just been back and forth, combination of effectiveness, but also maybe just not being right. He only threw 2 1/3 innings from May 22nd to June 6th. So I don't know what happened there. I didn't hear anything about him being injured, but maybe it was just a maintenance on him. Maybe just something wasn't right. He's giving up some runs, which is weird. Like, you kind of hate that at Brooklyn because the spot is just supposed to be able to suppress contact. That does it naturally. But the fact that he's keeping the ball in the strike zone, and again, we don't have any data right now. So maybe like when guys go down, it's hard to track. When guys go up and down the system, it's hard to track the difference of like if we're looking for stats for being important or if the team's
Yeah.
looking for cues being important. Again, I heard in a podcast this week, Rates and Barrels, that Max Meyer went down for the Marlins a couple months ago when he was pitching really well at the major league level.
Yeah.
And when he was pitching at the major league level, he was basically a 50-50 fastball slider guy. Since he went back down, I think it was like 50-40 and then like 10% changeups. Since he went back down, he's been 50 fastball, but like 25 changeup, 25 slider.
Okay.
So that's the Marlins being like, we need you to get better at that changeup. So like his stats have been bad, but it's because he's working on a pitch he's not that comfortable with. So because we don't know what Jonah Tong is doing, like maybe the Mets are like the fastball and the curveball are great, and we saw this cutter gyro slider thing coming along. We need you to be throwing that 20 times a start.
Yeah.
So like maybe that's just why he can't mitigate contact as well as he was in St. Lucie. Maybe that's why he's not missing as many bats as he was. Like, it's a little different. You can't just hammer the same 2 things over and over again because there may be cues from scouting, coaching, training, everything that not scouting. Why would scouting ever give cues? Not true.
I would hope not. Yeah.
Coaching and development. That's the things that's happening. Because also, that pitching lab was right next door in Port St. Lucie. You could go in there and work on things in your off day. You could tinker well.
Tinker.
Yeah, I don't think Brooklyn has the same kind of facilities, but it's just, again, not getting obsessed with these stats from these guys in the minor leagues, just keeping track of what's going on with them.
Yep. Jesus Baez, Nick Morabito still mashing. They're just good baseball players. Keep doing their thing. Nick Morabito still just
Brooklyn.
dominating in the minors, which is great. But we've got 2 more names for you that you probably haven't heard. I don't think we've mentioned them.
You missed one.
Who did I miss?
Ryan Clifford.
Oh, yes. He's playing so good.
Good, but weird.
Yeah. Well, he's hitting home runs.
Yeah.
He's hitting home runs.
He's hitting home runs, striking out 30% of the time. It's strange that he's like hitting under 200 with 5 home runs in like 2 weeks at Binghamton. I want him to settle in. I want him to relax. And something else funny that I've seen with Ryan Clifford recently. I want to shout out great member of Mets Twitter, Alvarez Met for Life. He directed me to someone finding Ryan Clifford's dad just having like a Twitter egg.
No.
Yeah. And every single time anyone in Mets Twitter mentioned Ryan Clifford being like,
uh-oh,
Ryan's doing great. Like, oh, Ryan has the highest ceiling in the Mets system.
Positive. Good.
Yeah, Ryan's going to be a great power hitter. Like, Ryan's going to be an amazing Major League Baseball player. Like, all Ryan had to do was gather Brooklyn. Now the power's back. Like, saying, like, really specific things like that. So just, like, shout out him, like, supporting his son. But it's so many strikeouts, so many walks for Clifford with the home runs. Maybe I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. I don't know. Maybe he's just being a little passive right now. I don't know.
Again, one of those things we also don't know, too. Remember, in Brooklyn, he had no home runs. He wasn't really hitting for any power, but his walk rate was crazy through the roof. So, like, maybe they're telling him don't swing the bat because it's not going to happen because you're hitting onto the beach.
Yeah, could be it. That could be it. So, we'll again, keep an eye on it. It's only been like 2 weeks in Binghamton, so we got time.
Last 2 guys I want to talk about here. Christopher Suero. I might have mentioned him in a previous prospect report briefly because he was hitting really well in low A. He got called up to Brooklyn, and since it's been about a month now, he just keeps raking, and he's kind of only ever mashed as a minor leaguer. Since he got called up to Brooklyn, 4 home runs, 18 RBIs, a 259 average with a 396 on base. Love to see that. 424 slugging, which again, it's Brooklyn. Take that with a grain of salt. We don't have his max X velos there, but in Port St. Lucie, he had one max X velo of 108.8, which is pretty impressive for a 20-year-old. He's also 5'11", like 180. He's built like a little brick shit house, so that's pretty cool to see as well. From the Bronx, when he hit his first home run in Brooklyn. Good call by the announcer. I don't know who it was, but he's like, Christian Suero, first home run back in New York since he's been in high school. I was like, oh, I like that. I didn't know he's from the Bronx. Originally a catcher, still playing some catcher, but he's also playing a lot of first base and left field, which I love to see that. They're like, hey, your bat seems to be good enough. We are going to have to find positions for you because we know this organization is just loaded with catchers. And really, at the end of the day, unless you're Francisco Alvarez, you probably want to get the most out of this guy's bat, and it's not going to come from behind the plate if he's catching every single day. So Christopher Suero, love his swing, love the pop that I've seen. Really good stuff. And then Douglas Orellana, a pitcher also in Brooklyn. It's probably Orellana, maybe. I don't know.
Orellana.
Orellana? Yeah. That makes sense. I can't believe we didn't know about this guy because it sounds like he has some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Mayer again. This is where I found out what the velos and stuff were because he's been pitching at Brooklyn this year. So based off of what he was kind of throwing last year, throws into the mid high 90s with a fastball. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to give you a little visual of how he throws. But he kind of has that really short arm action where he goes just directly back, doesn't go down around, directly back, and then super over the top down at you. 95 to 97, which is really cool. His slider has an average RPM of 2,700, which I think I was talking to you about before. You said that's pretty high, right?
Yeah, it's about 90. It would be 95th percentile slider spin in baseball.
That's disgusting. Love to see that. And then this was what really caught my eye. Just seeing the clips, I was like, this dude's got a nasty fucking hammer. Or for those of you who don't know baseball lingo, curveball. And his curveball has broke up to 62 inches of vertical break. That's 5 fucking feet. That feels insane to me. And the numbers he's put up have been really good. Now he's hurt. I don't know what happened. Minor league reporting's so bizarre. People will like tweet out videos every day, but then when a guy goes on the IL, nobody says what happens to him. Brooklyn Cyclones don't say why. They're like, IL, 7 days. No clue what's going on. But up until then, he was rocking a 32% K rate with an 11% walk rate. This guy's got some stuff. I mean, it's cool. I think he's 21 or 22 years old as well. Like, Mets just finding some little pieces here and there. This is why we like to do the prospect report for the Douglas Orianas and Christopher Sueros of the organization.
It's just so uplifting to see what the Mets are doing, like pitching development. Like as bad as it's been the major league team this year, it all keeps washing off my back because I'm like, oh, we have 30 pitchers in the minor leagues right now. We're all going to probably get close at least to contributing at the major league level. And a guy like Douglas Oriana is like that too. Like just having those pitch specs on a guy who's 20 years old, who was no kind of prospect, who came into your organization likely for next to nothing, being able to turn him into something like this already, it's incredible.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. That is the Prospect Report. Hope you guys did enjoy it. We haven't given you a good one in a while, so I hope you liked that. That was pretty in-depth. Let's go ahead and preview this Padres series on the weekend. I know who's pitching tomorrow night. We got a knuckleballer in town, Matt Waldron on the mound. He's been pitching pretty well,
really well
recently.
It's a very good, I want to say, like basically a month now. He's becoming like a phenomenon. Patrick Mahomes tweeted about him this week.
Yes, I saw that.
So yeah, it's like everybody says, like everyone, baseball players are always the coolest. Everyone wants to talk about baseball players, and Waldron is sick. Like he's out here throwing a knuckleball, and you were chastising the Padres a lot for giving him chance after chance in their rotation.
Yeah, I was
heading into the season, and he's kind of like paid them back, and now looks just good. Like he is. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't know how to say he's not.
He was getting nuked for like a year and a half. Just absolutely fucking shit on it. As Keith would say, he's getting his tits slit. But this last month, he's been money. I think he had a game with like 10 strikeouts against the Braves. Now, the Braves lineup is a little beleaguered this season. They haven't really been the same. But he has been pitching well, and he's coming to town, and I will definitely be glued to the TV because knuckleballers are fun to watch.
Yeah, and also Major League Baseball need a knuckleballer again. Like we need a knuckleballer.
What if this is because of the dead ball too? This all makes sense. The conspiracy theories are back. That's why he's not getting shit on anymore. My take was right, but they fuck with the baseballs.
To make Matt Waldron good. I don't know. He's given up he hasn't given up more than 2 runs in any start since May 11th. 3 of those starts, one was against the Dodgers, one was in Atlanta, another one was in Cincinnati. So it's not easy places to pitch at all, or easy teams to pitch against. It's fun. He's a fun little pitcher. I'm trying to pull up. It's Fangraphs. The new Fangraphs updates kind of is bugging me out. It's hard to track things like I used to track. I'm not as quick with it as I want to be, but so I'm going back to Savant right now.
What are you looking for?
I want to see his velocity. I want to see the way these pitches work. And the fastball comes in a nice clean 90. It's classic, but he's throwing the knuckleball 40% of the time. And it's just, again, it's a knuckleball. Like we had Wakefield growing up. Then we had Dickey close to home. Like it's just nice to have another one in the league that we can rely on.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love the knuckleball? In my attempts at trying to be a pitcher in my youth, knuckleball. Love throwing a knuckleball out there because I sure as fuck couldn't throw hard.
He's funny too because he'll like we were talking about before, like he'll mix 2 different kinds of fastballs. He's throwing his 4-seamer 23%, his sinker 15%, a sweeper 20% of the time too. So it's just a lot of nonsense coming out from him. I want to see before we move on from it. I just want to see if he's like changed it a lot in these last month, his pitch mix while it's happening. Great podcasting here.
Great podcasting.
Has changed. Just really more knuckleballs, really, but not that much different. Baby. He's cut colors mostly, but yeah, it's just more knuckleballs and a lot of nonsense. He had one start May 28th that was against the That was against the Marlins. Yeah, trash it against the Marlins. He threw
Of
55%
course. Yeah.
he threw 55% knuckleballs. His highest of any game this year. Only the second time this year at the time. The only second time in general. Well, actually, the only time this year he's thrown more than 50% knuckleballs in the start. And yeah, they strikeouts and no walks. So that's pretty fun.
What are the other pitching matchups in the series?
Other pick match in this series, the Mets are getting a break here that Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish are both in the IL. Musgrove might be out for a while. He's got a bone spur in his elbow.
Yeah.
But Darvish, it seems like he's just at the age where he needs like a couple weeks of maintenance every month and a half. But Manaea versus Waldron, and then Saturday, yuck off. Quintana versus Adam Mazur, and then Sunday.
Really? Adam Mazur's up?
Yeah, he's been up for like 2 weeks now.
Really?
You go to England, you just forget about baseball.
Dude, I told you, I've never felt more disconnected in my life from the sport. It was like things don't exist.
It's hard that time difference to keep track of it. It's kind of like
so hard.
I keep track for a few innings. I go to bed, I wake up, and I just go on my phone for like 45 minutes straight. But then Sunday matinee, Tylor Megill versus Dylan Cease, ace off.
Oh, ace off.
Yeah,
Dylan Cease has been pitching
awesome.
really good
It's
too.
fucking so good.
It's the one guy I bet the fucking unders on in strikeouts, and he's gonna murder it. He's gonna crush it so hard.
I think I'm gonna go like 21, 24 out of 24 in those bets though. So I'm pretty happy that we swept the board with those. But now Cease has been awesome. He hasn't really changed anything either. He's just throwing less curveballs, but he's just good. He's got rid of those curveballs for some sweepers. It's just fastball and slider for him though, and I think it's just a big part of it is probably being on a team that's winning is helpful because
probably
again
matters.
We're on another team that doesn't use computers, so we can't really give much credit for that. And again, he hasn't changed much, so we're not going to give any credit for that either. It's also just like pitching San Diego is awesome. Like it's just every day I wake up, the weather's perfect. You give up fly balls, that they catch it. It's just a great place to pitch. It's a great ballpark. It's a great place to live, and it's like he's kind of been the thing that's anchoring this Padres team in the spot that they are. I think they're about 500, 2 games over 500 now, but I think they're better than what that
I agree with
record is. Like I told you this before the season. We argued about this. That I think they're actually good. Like I think they're a team where if this pitching is at full health, and if Jurickson Profar is an all-star and Fernando Tatis continues to do what he does, like this is a team that probably most National League teams don't want to walk into a series against in a best of 3.
The difference
as we know.
Yeah, as we've experienced. Jurickson Profar has been the difference though. Because like their offense, otherwise, like Cronenworth started off crazy hot, and he's still relatively holding float, but he's probably going to end up being a league average hitter on the season. And then like Ha-Seong Kim is like probably going to end up being a league average hitter on the season. But Profar stuff seems like really sticky, to use one of your words.
Mm-hmm.
It might have just happened for Jurickson Profar. I mean, this guy was the number 1 prospect in baseball, and it looks like he's now figured out a way to have that patience and discipline that he's always had, and also leverage that into being like a valuable hitter and doing some damage as well.
Kind of. He's given away some of the patience here. The strikeouts and walks are still good, but Profar is a guy that's just like, he does that same thing that Luisangel Acuna does, which is, wow, it took Jurickson Profar, 10 years to be good at the major league level with that approach, where he'll just take hacks. And now he's finally found a way to like get to pull power, pulled fly balls for the first time his entire career. And that's led to like being 50% better than league average, and also having like a 450 on base percentage. I think it's back down like 400 now, but I'm thinking
424.
Yeah, it's still amazing. What?
This is the Luis Arraez series. I get to hate on Luis Arraez all weekend.
I forgot they had Luis Arraez. We named like 7 players in this team before Luis Arraez, the next coming of Tony Gwynn. Keith was talking about Luis Arraez during the game tonight too. He's gonna fucking freak out.
That might be our media marvels, just the fucking Luis Arraez coverage. That might be it. That might be the whole thing.
Yeah, but your boy Luis Arraez has been like pitting pretty
really well.
He's going to the Padres, been kind of awesome. He's another guy similar to Tylor Megill, where it's like you got to hit enough to be one of the worst defenders in baseball. And right now, he is hitting enough to be one of the worst defenders in baseball. He's got
who else is hitting?
Who?
Donnie Barrels. Donovan Solano's been raking as well for the Padres.
I'm begging for that guy to be a Met my entire adult life. But
how old's Donovan Solano? Quick, don't look.
31.
36.
Shut the fuck up.
Donovan Solano's 36. I think he played on those Miami Marlins teams when they brought in like Reyes and stuff. He had 2012 Miami Marlins when they had the awful M logo, and Ozzie Guillen was the manager.
That's awesome. They should run the whole thing back with the exact same roster. Like they probably similar record they have right now. I mean, also the guy who's also hitting is Fernando Tatis Jr. Like he had a 17-game hitting streak snap this week. He just, everything is kind of seeming to coalesce for him again at the same time. He's hit like 4 home runs in the last 7 games. He has, this is crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games played with a run scored. He's stealing bases again. It just seems like that the shape of his season, he started off kind of middling, kind of not really finding it. And now these last like 3-4 weeks happening, feels like you were about to get like a classic Fernando Tatis Jr. power surge. Here's
Yeah.
another one. How old's Fernando Tatis Jr.?
24.
He's 25. He's still
Nice.
fucking 25 years old. So this guy is
Yeah.
still everything. And also, just a quick anecdote for Mets fans, and never forget that the only reason Francisco Lindor has the contract that half of you hate and think about all day long is because Peter Seidler had cancer, sadly, and wanted to do
Yeah.
everything he could for his players and his organization and like win a championship while he was still here. And everyone talked so highly of him that he was a great owner. He's very kind to everybody. He gave 21-year-old Fernando Tatis Jr. $340 million for basically one good season of baseball.
Yep.
And then Francisco Lindor was like, I'm more experienced. I've been to more All-Star games. I've played more games. I've been to a World Series. I'm getting more money than that guy. And Francisco Lindor makes $1 more million than Fernando Tatis Jr. So do not think that any of this is an accident, what these contracts are and how these players view each other in terms of how each other are in the league. But that's one of my favorite anecdotes about the modern Mets and Padres.
I'm going to give you a little layup here, too. Jeremiah Estrada, Robert Suarez. Got to talk about those guys, too.
Jeremiah Estrada. His shit's different. Like, I don't even know how to describe it.
If only the Cubs had a good reliever like him, they'd be a lot better, huh?
I've really given the Cubs a lot of credit, like on this show and just like talking, doing baseball stuff in the last few years about like going against like the grain with velocity and finding these control artists with these deep pitch mixes and finding a lot of valuable pitchers that way. Like you can't really discount what like Justin Steele and Javier Assad have done. Like they're literally keeping that team in a playoff race. I think those two are actually just both actually really good. Like
You're an Assad believer, huh?
I'm an Assad believer that he's good. Not that he's this good, but he's good.
Would you say you're an Assad sympathizer?
I will not say that.
Okay, damn it! I thought I was gonna get you.
I will not say that. I'm definitely a Steele sympathizer. Justin Steele's a good pitcher. He does a lot of cool things. He has done tons of different fastballs, tons of different slider variations. He's fucking dope. He's a real old school pitcher. But I guess they love these guys throwing 94. They forgot about the guy throwing fucking 100 like babies. Jeremiah Estrada is like doing the same thing now that Mason Miller was doing in April, where he's literally untouchable. I think he had like. I think, again, being in Europe, you kind of miss all like the quick
15 strikeouts in a row.
Yeah, that was it. 14 in a row, I think, exactly was. But he's disgusting. Robert Suarez, too. Both those guys just throw fastballs. They say, fuck you, I'm throwing a fastball. Fuck you, I'm throwing a fastball. Over and over again. That's the whole thing they do. And they're a fearsome bunch at the back of that bullpen. Don't want to run into them because they have not blown many games this year. And Padres team is just really solid. They're like realistically like one like middle of the lineup thumper away from being like a legit like World Series contender. Like if they had one guy in this team, like maybe a lefty outfielder that could like be one of the best hitters in baseball, they'd be fucking set.
A power hitting first baseman, you know.
Oh, that could do that too. But yeah.
I got like a name, but we will talk about that on another episode. This is gonna be a good heat check for the Mets. I like this. This is gonna be a fun series. It's gonna be one that I'm gonna have a close eye on for sure. I feel like more than normal. It's just this is good for both teams. A good test on both sides of the ball. Anything else here, James, before we wrap this one up, or it's time to get going because this has been a long one.
Yeah, long episode. I got this now. I don't know. I think anything else the Padres are missing on fun shit. Things to talk about with them. I don't know.
I guess we'll check the ears of all the guys before they get onto the mound. See if they're shining this time.
I guess maybe you should tweet about it. See what happens.
Yeah, get some people mad. See if someone up top hears about it and then tells the manager. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the episode, guys.
That's the episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Make sure you follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Mets'd Podcast YouTube channel. See the video version of this as well as exclusive video content. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download and subscribe. Follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
And I'm Draftnik Mark with a C. See you guys on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out. Thanks for listening.